Good morning, everybody. It is good to be here, and it is good to have a chance to come and to share a little bit with you about what God has been doing and what's been happening. When I got back, Pastor Louis asked me to give you a bit of an update about our furlough. And so when Mary and I were talking about what to do, we decided we would give you we're going to pull the curtains back, and we're going to kind of show you what furlough really happens on furlough, what we really do. And all of those type of things. A lot of people will come to us and like, oh, I hope you enjoy your furlough. Hope you have a lot of fun times and relax. And furlough is not a relaxing time. There are parts of it that are really relaxing. And there are parts of it where we get to spend with family and do all sorts of fun stuff like that. But there's also a lot of work. There's a lot of things that are going on and involvement from our part. And so we were trying to come up with a good way of showing to you just some of how this all works. And what we ended up deciding was the way that we'll show it to you is the number of beds we slept in. So all the times that we moved from one place to the next, the number of beds. Now, as I get older, again, I'm not old, but as I get older, I find that the bed is very important. I miss my bed. I miss my pillows. I miss my, of all things, my shower. There's the simple little things of life that I miss. Right? It used to be the food, it used to be all the other stuff, and I still miss some of those things, but man, I miss my bed. So beds was a good way for us to be able to show you kind of how it all works and all the things that are going on. So we're going to give you a tour of our furlough and all the places that we got to go to and all the things that we were able to do and things. So the very first part of it, we went to Johannesburg for our staff conference. So we spent about 3 or 4 days with them, and you'll notice there at the bottom, that was our first bed change, right? Our first bed, and you'll see that as it grows, all right? So we spent time there with all of them, and that's kind of it's a nice thing, because we were able to put all of our luggage into the car and drive up there, and we flew out of Joburg, which was great, be able to do that. And so we had a really good time with them, an encouragement time with them, but also just a chance for us to prep and get ready to leave for the U.S. But on our way to the U.S., we stopped in Switzerland. We have a supporter there, so we spent some time with them, and they are old-time friends of ours. So when we were living in Johannesburg, they homeschooled their kids with ours, and the Avanza, the little white Avanza, came from them. They are the ones who, in essence, sold it to us, but basically sold it to us for what they owed the bank, which is not nearly what it was worth. But God just worked through that. And so we were able to spend time with them there. And it was cold. It was cold. And it was only a precursor to how cold we were actually going to get. But yes, that was another bed. So we spent time there. Then we flew from there to the U.S. And we landed in Chicago for the storm of the century. And I have been cold before because I lived in the States and I've done this, but I have never been this cold. All right, Chicago, the windy city, right? It was 29 degrees Celsius below, minus 29. Right? And so you get off the plane and you don't have all the stuff. I didn't have my jacket. I didn't have all the stuff. And we're running around with our bags and carts and all this stuff. And we found out when we landed, or actually I think we found out before we landed, that our next flight had already been canceled. So we were going to be stuck in Chicago. So we arrived in the evening. We had to go and check and try to find a new flight, so we're waiting for that. And then we had to find a hotel, which they didn't want to pay for, so we had to pay for ourselves. And we had to bus ourselves to the hotel, and then bright and early the next morning, we had to get all of our stuff back into the car and bus everything back. So it was a great start to furlough. And yes, that was another bed, so a hotel type of thing. Then from there, we were able to go see my family. So eventually we got to see my parents, and yes, there's another bed because we stayed with them for a few days. So that's where we and I'm so grateful for my parents. We just unload everything and just repack everything and leave everything all over the place because we were heading to Florida or heading south and all of those type of things. So we spent a few days there. We actually got the vehicle that we were driving there as well, and then we were able to head off. And our first stop, which you'll see a bunch of beds kind of jumped in there. We stopped at a friend of ours on the way to Brandon and Brianna. And so they're a supporter of ours, and they're a great halfway spot for us traveling. So we went to see, her name is Kendra, we went to see her for a night. and spent the night there, and then on to Brandon and Brianna and the kids, and so we got to spend 10 days with them, which was awesome. But while we were with them, we had to move, so we got 2 beds when we were there with them and things. But it was a really great time to spend with them. And then we made it to Word of Life down in Florida, which is a great facility, and you'll see the pictures there. It's fantastic buildings. I always look at this one here, and I think, well, that's like in a magazine. It's pretty fancy. That's the new dormitory they just built for the students and things. So they're doing really well down there, and God is really blessing them. And they have an RV park there, which has probably, 200-300 people type of thing, more, a whole bunch of people. And so 30 years ago, when we started raising support, we spent 3 years there raising support. And we had a lot of our support there, but it's all retired people. So 30 years, retired people, I'm just going to say, we've lost a few over the years. So we went there to kind of reconnect and to make new connections and to raise some support there. And I think we moved like 3 times when we lived there. So they kind of bounces around from place to place. So you'll see a whole bunch of beds jump up on that one. And we were there for like 6-7 weeks, which was great. Had a really great time connecting with people and being able to reach out and to make new connections and raise support and all of those type of things. And I think there's another slide there. If my clicker doesn't seem to want to work now. There you go. So we got to share a few times, and then we got to meet with all of the people in the RV park at Word of Life, and then we have some friends who are at another RV park, and we were able to go to that one as well. And to participate with them. And this one over here, this is the other RV park people. They all get together and do the Word of Life quiet time once a week together. So they do it all throughout the week, and then they get together and talk about it, which I think is just amazing type of thing. And then we got to go see some other friends on that visit as well and spend a few nights with them. Again, more beds coming and coming and coming. All right, and then we went to North Carolina. This one, he's a supporter. The couple is a supporter. They're fantastic, but it's also a bit of a vacation. They like to take care of us. So we got to relax. It is another bed, but it's a fantastic opportunity to hang out with them. They take great care of the kids, which I really appreciate. The first time we actually met them, we showed up at their house in Michigan, and they said, "Do you guys have socks?" That's the first thing they said when we came through the door. We're like, yeah? All right, grab them. And we went to a giant blow-up warehouse. They had giant blow-up toys, and they played with the kids for hours, and it was just really cool to see. So we loved going to see them. Went to see a hockey game, an ice hockey game, and things with them. And then we went back to Pennsylvania. My sending church, they own this duplex, so it's 2 houses. We tend to always stay on the right side, is where we end up always staying. And so we were able to, again, unpack there and dump everything out, get everything from my parents' house, take it there, unload, and just kind of be together for a little bit type of thing. And we were there for a couple of weeks, and then, actually only a couple of days. Then Mary and I were off to New York City to do our visas, to apply for our visas to come back to South Africa and things. And yes, another bed there, in a big hotel and all that, whatever. And I don't know. I love South Africa. We show up. The consulate is where it's always been, right? Like you go to where it's advertised. It's on their website. This is where the consulate is. All right, we go. We get to the door. The guy's standing there. He's like, "Yeah, they're not here anymore." Like, okay. And in my mind, immediately it goes to they've moved to across the city. And you're only allowed to show up like 15 minutes before your appointment. So it's not like you can show up and be like, "Okay, I got a chance to get somewhere else." So you show up and they're like, "Yeah, they're not here anymore." And my mind immediately goes to the other side of the town. I'm never going to make it. It's New York City. It's going to be a nightmare. And then the guy says, "Yeah, they're like 3 blocks that way," which in New York City, it's either long blocks or short blocks. And he's like, "It's like 3 or 4 short blocks that way," type of thing. We're like, "Okay, we can make that." And so we get there, and it was really nice. They walked us right up. It was no problem. And the first thing the lady asked us was all of our papers. "Do you have all your papers?" "Yes." "Do you have payment?" "Yes." Like, "Oh, but we changed the amount." Like, okay, great. But what they don't tell you is you have to have, a certified check. So it's not like you can just get one, anywhere. So I run back those 4 short blocks plus a few extra to a post office to get a new certified check, run back up that way. And by the time I got there, Mary and her had done all the paperwork, and everything, but God loves South Africa. I just, I'm like, you might want to post this on your website that you've moved and prices have changed and all of this. And emails don't work, yeah. Phones, nothing worked. But that was fun. So we got to hang out in New York City for a night, go have some real, New York-style pizza. Got to make it hard. Don't want to make it easy. Don't want to make it easy on us. All right, so that was our trip to New York City. Then we were back to PA again, and in this time we were able to share in a lot of the different churches that are supporting us, and we were able to have an opportunity just to share what God is doing in South Africa and things along those lines, and I got opportunities to speak with people and to share and to preach through all of that and things. And then we were able to spend time with Marissa and Maya, but they stayed in Pennsylvania. After Easter, they stayed there, and Mary and I took off for Michigan. And so just the two of us were off to Michigan, and we have some supporting churches there, and Mary's family is there. And so we were able to spend, I think it was 3 weeks up there. We cut that one short. Normally would be there quite a bit longer, but this furlough was a little bit different. And then we wanted to make it back to Pennsylvania, which that would be the next one. Back to Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah, time with Mary's family and all of that. And that's, Mary didn't tell you this, and I don't, on her way back, she's going back to the States on Tuesday, but August 1st is her brother's funeral. So since we've been back here, her brother passed away. And so and God likes what she's saying. God's worked out all this stuff. The trip was already planned and all of this, and God has worked it out that she'll actually be able to be there and things for the funeral and things. So we spend time with the family, and then, of course, back to Pennsylvania. And the girls stayed in Pennsylvania when we were in Michigan, stayed in the missions house, and they both got jobs and all of those type of things. And then we were able to report back to the churches, continuing to reach back to the churches in Pennsylvania and things, and continue to meet with people. And then we said goodbye to Marissa because she was off to Word of Life down in Florida. So she went off, so we were able to do that and then continue. And then I had a chance to fly to Maine, and we have a supporting church there. So I was able to go there and to share with them. And it's not just South Africa that has issues. The U.S., the flights are awful and things. And I don't know. Okay, I have this shirt on. It says, "You are enough." It's about suicide awareness, understanding suicide and talking to people. And one of the times on my flight to Maine, we were at one place, they moved us to another, and we all got there, and then they moved us back to another one, and then they moved us back. And it was like we were just running between, and I had this shirt on, and all of us that were trying to get to Maine are all walking together, and somebody asked me, like, "Hey, I really appreciate your shirt." And I got to share Jesus Christ with them and all of those things. So I look at it as it was annoying to have to do all those things and canceled flights and moved flights and change-ins and all of those type of things, but it was kind of nice to be able to share the gospel and to talk to people and things along those lines. And so then we were able to go there. I was in Maine. Mary and the kids all stayed back. So it was just me being able to go there and things. And then back to Pennsylvania type of thing. And then, this was in the flight. This was in the airport. And I love this. But it says, if you can't read it, says, "We are all citizens of the world. Wherever you go, share a plate of food with a stranger, and you will find out who you are." I love sharing food with people. I love food. It's a given. But I love opening up our table and having people around. So I thought that was a lot of fun running around with all of those things. Yes, Jordan, are you coming for lunch? And then we were able to head home back here to South Africa, and that was a fantastic feeling to be able to fly back. But because of the war, because of the things going on in Iran, the price of tickets went really high, beyond our budget. So we actually ended up, I would never take these flights to get back to South Africa. But price-wise, these were the only ones that were within realm of our budget. And you'll notice our travel. I was trying to tell Mary, I was like, maybe we need to add 2 chairs right there, because we slept in an airplane for 2 nights, traveling back, type of thing. It was a terribly long. Normally, our flights from the U.S. to South Africa is right around between 21 to 24 hours of travel time, roughly. This one was 48 hours of travel time from the time, and that does not include the time that we spent in the car getting from Pennsylvania to JFK thing, which that's another 6 hours onto that. So it was a brutal one along those lines. So I get, in a nutshell, that's kind of what our furlough looks like. I forget what the total was, Mary. I think there's a summary. 21 different beds we slept in throughout the trip. We were able to visit 7 supporting churches throughout that time. We were able to travel through 11 states and meet with people in all of those. And we drove over 9,650 kilometers, which is from here to Israel, in a matter of 5 months. So when people say they're going on furlough, all right, it is not a holiday. It is not a break. It is not. There are aspects of that where we get time with family, we get time with friends, and we get to hang out with different people and all of that. But there's a lot of work in between it. And we've shared with you guys the Word of Life's add us mentoring the other missionaries in Africa. So we would do that in the morning, do support raising in the afternoon, and try to meet with people in the evenings. So it's kind of like an ongoing, every day, trying to do as much as we possibly can while we were going. So to be honest, I was excited to get back so that, one, I could get in my own bed, but we could take a break. We could stop for a minute. And then traveling 48 hours, I got sick when we got back. And so it was bad because I don't like being sick, but it was nice because I got to stay in bed. Because I was like, oh, finally, I could guilt-free laying in bed. I didn't have to feel guilty about it at all and things. But so that, in a nutshell, is our furlough. So if you want more details about it, come and see us. But that, in essence, is kind of what we do while we're gone and running around and doing all of these things along those lines. But also, I think one of my favorite parts of furlough, I think it's kind of like a two-edged sword when it comes to furlough. I love talking to people. You all know I have no problem talking. I love to talk. I love to talk to people. I love to talk about South Africa. I love to talk about what's going on. And we do a lot of that while we're on furlough. But we talk about the same thing over and over and over. My kids used to always tell, they could probably do the presentations after a few times of hearing me and doing all those things. And everywhere we go, we're trying to talk to people about what God is doing here, because we're trying to raise funds, we're trying to raise prayer supporters, we're trying to raise all of those things. And so it's a lot of times we're just spending, and we'll travel. In the midst of traveling, when we left North Carolina, we went to Virginia Beach because we have a guy there that we're trying to get a part of our team to be a supporter of ours and things. So we drive an extra 2 hours to go somewhere to talk with somebody for 45 minutes. And then we travel another 2 hours to try to go see somebody else. And so there's a lot of this talking, a lot of this stuff going around and being involved in. And I have no problem talking about South Africa. If anything, when I get these opportunities, it's like a revitalization for me. Because I get excited I can talk all day about what God is doing in South Africa. And so it's a real joy for me to be able to do that. But it's also hard because you're always looking for people to talk to and to share with what's going on. And to be quite simple, a lot of people are there, and we come across a lot of pastors. It happens here, but a lot of times we come across a pastor or church leaders. They want to get together and talk, but not because they want to know about South Africa. They want to get together and talk because they're having issues in their church, or they're having issues in their own life, and they have nobody to talk to. They have nobody actually to open up to and to share with. And so we have become, sounding boards for a lot of people. So they'll come and they'll want to talk to us about South Africa, or they want to talk to us about something, but we end up just hearing all kinds of things that are going on. And we're okay with it. We've come to the conclusion that it's always been like this. That every furlough has been like this, and so we enjoy it. But it's also an opportunity for us to kind of do some influence and to be a part of what it is that they're doing, to help them, to pray for them, to work through some of their issues alongside of them, but to be of an influence in their life. And it's exactly what we try to do here in South Africa. We want to influence people. And our goal, and I hope that your goal, is to influence people. Everything we do is about being a positive influence in the lives of people around us. And if you have your Bibles, I'm going to share just a quick. I don't have the time for a whole sermon, but we'll get through as much as we can. Turn with me to Matthew, Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. And you'll be aware of this passage because it's part of the Sermon on the Mount, right? The Beatitudes and all of those type of things. And so the first 12 verses of Matthew 5 is is Jesus talking to us as Christians, how we are to interact with him. So it's our relationship with God. And then verses 13 to 16 is about our relationship with the people around us. All right? And I love the order of this. I love how Jesus put this in here. Everything is dependent on our relationship with Jesus Christ first. If that is good, then our relationship with people will be better. And we will be able to be of a positive influence, and I'm going to use the word, a biblical influence in people's lives. And that's what we need to be. 1 Peter, and just stay there in Matthew, but 1 Peter 3:15 says this, "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for the reason of the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." People are going to see us, and if our relationship with God is right, our relationship with people are going to notice there's something different about us. They're going to see that we live in a different way, and they're going to want to know, why do you do this? Why do you live that way? Why do you react to these things in the way that you do? And that's great. We want them to ask us. That's what that verse is saying. We want them to ask us so that we can share Jesus Christ. So when I was in that airport heading to Maine, and everybody's frustrated, and everybody's getting mad, and everybody's like, I can't believe this airline, they're terrible, blah, blah, blah. And some people use more creative words, I suppose we could say. And I'm all calm, and I'm just walking like, hey, let's go, here we go. Why are you not upset? Well, let me tell you why. Because I know that Jesus Christ is in control of all of this. And no matter what happens today, I know he's still in control. And I can share Jesus Christ with them. We respond differently to that. And so in this passage, I know I don't have time, but it's being the salt of the earth and being the light of the world, right? There's both in this. But I'm only going to get through the salt, all right? In Bible times, they knew and understood the illustration that Jesus was putting together, what salt is and what light was. They understood the importance of both of those. I think sometimes here in South Africa, we understand the importance of light because sometimes we lose power, right? And we lose the light, right? Sometimes, a little, But they understood the importance of all of it, okay? And so they were living that. And I love in this passage, and I'll read verse 13 for you. And even the verse, I memorized it, and I was glad that Valerie sent it out, or I don't think it was her. I think it was KG sent it out. The Ephesians 5:8-9. It's the light one. But it even says in there, and in our passage it says, you are the salt, or you are the light. It doesn't say that you will become the light, or you might be the salt. It says you are the salt. And if you read verses 14 to 16, if you continue on, it says you are the light. It's not like an option for us. It's not like, you can turn it on and you can turn it off. You are the salt and you are the light. It is not a future thing. It's not a past thing. It's a now thing. It is what we are intended to be. Okay? And so we got to live in this way of doing all of those things. So let me read Matthew 5. And you guys can follow along with me. 5 verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It's a rhetorical question. It's a question, but it's rhetorical. It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under the feet of men. So this passage is saying that you are the salt of the earth. You are that. All right? And if you look at that verse, tossed under or lost its taste, that word is only used 4 times in the New Testament. All right? So only 4 times we see that. And the literal translation of that basically is this: to make or to become foolish, to act as a simpleton. All right? Now, these are Jesus' words, not mine. All right? So listen. Basically, Jesus is saying Christians who lose their savor or their saltiness are in fact making fools of themselves. All right? Not my words, Jesus' words. You're acting foolish if you don't do what salt, if you're not acting the way salt is supposed to act. If you lose your flavor, if you lose your ability to be that influence in people's lives. Same through, and I know I'm not going to get there, but light. It would be ridiculous for us to light a lamp and then to cover it. Why would you cover a lamp? It's ridiculous to think that. So it's not not Jesus is it's an illustration. It's ridiculous. He's saying you're foolish. You're a fool if you do these things. You're a fool. Why would you not live up to your saltiness in this world? You're foolish if you walk away from it. But yet people do that, all right? And people walk away. And we'll use the word contaminated. They become contaminated. And they allow things into their life that will contaminate them. And the passage says, once the person is contaminated, what are they good for? Nothing but to be thrown under the feet of men. Right? And as a young person, I would have used that as an example of, in the States, they get a lot of snow, and they use rock salt to keep everybody from slipping and falling. So they take rock salt, and rock salt is full of rocks. It's salt, but it's full of rocks. It's full of contamination. And they throw it on the ground. They throw it on the roads so that people won't slip and fall. And so I always use that as an illustration. Once the people are contaminated, it keeps the rest of us from falling. But Jesus is saying it's ridiculous to think of that. We should never be in that situation. We should never be so contaminated. We should never be in a situation. And he's basically saying, you're foolish for doing that. And we should not do that. But as we go on, and let me carry on with the salt thing. It is a hidden influence in our lives. So salt is one of those things we don't see a lot of. We don't see all of it around us. But it has a big impact in the things that we have and the things that are around us. And so we want to look at how we can remain salty even today. So the first one that you can see in here, salt gives taste. Have you ever seen one of those cooking shows? And the whoever it is, the chef or whatever, he tastes it and he says, "Oh, this tastes bland. You didn't add enough salt." Right? So it doesn't have enough flavor. Salt adds flavor. Okay, so we put salt into things because we want to add flavor to it. We don't necessarily, if you go down to the beach, right? And I asked Akukle, Lawrence's little one, did you drink any of the water? She goes, "Oh, no, I got it in my mouth, but it's salty, it's too much salt." But rightly applied to food, it brings out the flavor of the food. And what we're learning in this and what we're understanding is we are to add the flavor in this world. We are to salt the world. We are to be the salt. We are the salt. And add that taste, that flavor, that excitement, that passion for Jesus Christ. We are to express that. We are to do those things. We are to add that tastiness to Christ. We are to add flavor to the spiritual bland world that we live in. All right? And it's important for us to be able to do that. All right, the second one that I was going through this, the salt is a preservative. So back in the day, salt was always used to preserve food, to keep food, before we had the refrigerators and all of those type of things. All right, and so that is what salt was supposed to do. And I love the analogy here. All right, and I think you all can agree, the world that we live in is falling apart. Right? And if we're honest with one another, and if we read the book of Revelation, it's not going to get better. All right, we all think it's going to get better. We're going to fight for it. We're going to make it better. But we are fighting kind of in essence, in a certain sense, as far as keeping the world, or bringing the world back. We're fighting a losing battle. We know we're going to win at the end because we know where we're going to spend eternity. But this world is falling apart and it's only getting worse. Okay? But if we use this analogy with salt, our job as Christians, as biblical Christians, if we're living the way we're supposed to, if we are the salt, our responsibility is to preserve this world a little bit longer. To hold off the decay that is happening around us, to slow it down until the day that the Lord returns. That's our job. We're not responsible for the big picture things. Okay? Our job is to preserve this world. Our job is to influence this world, to keep it as long as we possibly can till the day the Lord returns. But we're not going to change everything. I wish we could. I wish we could fix every little problem, every little detail. I wish we could turn it all back into a Christian world. We could go back, but that's not what the Bible tells us. This world is going to continue to get worse. But as salt, it's our job to preserve the world. It's our job to slow down that decay as it goes forward. Now, don't go out and tell everybody, "Oh, Pastor Brad said we're going to lose, but the world's going to fall apart," and all of these things. Yes, it is, and I get all of that. But it is our job to hold off those things, and we are to do the best that we can. But if you've lost your saltiness, you're not really helping. You're actually helping the other side for the world to decay faster. It's our job to be able to do that and to live the right way. Ray Pritchard, who is a friend of Word of Life type of thing, a preacher, he said it this way: "We who follow Jesus Christ are to be moral disinfectant, stopping the spread of evil. We are to be the conscience of the community and speak out for what is right and true." That is our responsibility. We are to share Jesus Christ. We are to share, we are to preserve, and we are to encourage people to do the right things. But that is our responsibility. It's God's job to change people, not ours. But we are to be there to affect that, to be an influence, to help them to see what's going on. I could talk about that for a while too. But another one, the last one, salt creates thirst. All right? I'm sure you've all heard the saying, you can't lead a horse to the water and make him drink, right? You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, if you put a spoonful of salt in his mouth, he's going to drink. All right? So that's our job as Christians today, as believers. We are to add that so people have a thirst for Jesus Christ in what we say, in what we do, how we act, how we respond to people. We are to create a thirst. Why are you different? Well, let me tell you why. Because I know Jesus Christ is my personal Savior, right? We are to create a thirst in their life, something that they recognize, and they're going to want to know, what is it that you have that I don't? And that's creating a thirst. And so we are to be doing that in the lives of people. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6 says this: "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." I was actually working on another sermon for today type of thing, but it wasn't going to be ready in time. But I love throughout this passage and even in this one, always be gracious. How we respond, how we react to people, right? Do you get mad and angry? Then you're not really being the salt that we're supposed to be. But this passage says, with graciousness, right? Always be gracious. In the Matthew 5 passage, it talks about with respect and being of peace. We are to be peaceful people. So as Christians today, yes, the world is falling apart all around us, right? But we are to be at peace with everybody. To the best of my ability, I am supposed to be at peace with the world around me. And I need to speak and respond with respect, with humility, and with graciousness. I found in the States, and you can determine whether it's here or not, that, man, they just want to fight. It's all the far left and the far right, and there's no in between. And they're just going to yell at each other for no reason. There is no graciousness. There is no humility. There is no peace. They just want to fight. This passage in God's Word and what Jesus is saying to us, we need to do this, but we need to do it in a gracious way, in a loving way, with compassion, with gentleness, and all of those things. That's where I think a lot of times we get off. We get off we're like, well, I'm right and you're wrong, and let me prove it to you. And we become argumentative, right? And there's an old a saying when we're doing evangelism: you may win the argument, and you probably will win the argument, but you lost the soul. So if I fight with them and argue with them, I could probably win that argument, but they will never listen to the gospel message ever again. So I may have won the argument, but I most certainly have lost that soul, right? And so we don't want to be argumentative. We want to do it with peace. That's a whole side note. That's a whole another thing going through all of that. So we kind of see in here, salt is a seasoning, salt is a preservative, and it produces thirst in the lives of people. God has asked us to live in this world, to be a part of this world, and we need to be a part of it, right? Romans 12 and verse 2, it says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed. We are to be different. We're not supposed to be like the world, but we need to be in this world. Because if we aren't in the world, we can't influence the world. But that does not mean we become like the world, that you are contaminated with the things of the world and you've lost your saltiness, right? So we are to live in this world, but we are to be out and doing it. I was sitting with my mom, and my mom is not doing great health-wise, okay? So it's another one of those things, right? And I was asking her about her life, and I was asking her about some of the decisions she made, and at one point she gave up. She gave up working in our church in the youth ministry and things, and she wanted to work as a social worker, out in the world. She wanted to become a social worker. I was like, Mom, why did you make that choice? And she said something to me. She said, Brad, I was tired of salting inside the salt shaker. Okay? And what she was saying was, I was tired of trying to ingest and only influence the people in the church. I wanted to get out of the salt shaker. I needed to get out of the salt shaker. One of the amazing things with salt, right? Salt only responds or reacts when it comes into contact with something else. If it's left in the salt shaker, right? If you have I have a nice grinder one, if anybody has, the salt one, and I like the pink Himalayan. I don't know if it tastes any different, but I think it's just cool to have the pink Himalayan one, right? And there's like all kinds of salt. I did research. There's all kinds. There's some really expensive salt out there, but it's just salt, right? It's just salt. But if I have a salt shaker, and it might be the most amazing, most expensive salt in the world, but if it never comes out of my cupboard, it's pretty much useless, right? It has no purpose, it has no point. Until I get it out of the cupboard and I grind it and I put it on food or I put it on something, that's when it fulfills its purpose, when it comes into contact with something. We, as the salt, need to get out into the world and come into contact with a lost world. That's when we become effective. That's when we fulfill the purpose that God has given us, when we get out there and we come into contact with the world. So when my mom said that to me, I kind of, was like, I work for Word of Life. I work with mostly Christian people. I go from church to church, and I work with pastors, youth leaders. I'm working at the salt. I'm in the salt shaker, and I'm talking to people in the salt shaker. Right? It was a little convicting to me as well, but I think it should be convicting to all of us. Are you stuck in the salt shaker? Or are you sitting on the shelf? Or are you out there interacting with the world and being involved? One of the sayings that I've always kind of lived our ministry by, and everybody will have heard this many a times, serve God by serving others. Get out and start serving people. That's what we need to do. And we need to do it with love, with compassion, with graciousness, because eventually they're going to say, why are you doing this? Well, let me tell you why. Right? And the other day, Pastor Louie was sharing one, and we shared it at the other thing. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's what we've been called to do. That's what salt is. You are salt. You're not becoming salt. You're not getting salt. You are salt. And we've got to get out and we've got to care for people. We've got to love people. And that's what we do on Furlough. That's one of the things. We get out, we care for people, we love people. We talk to people, we listen to them. And we do all of those things, but it's the same thing that we do when we're here. People ask us when we come back, what are you going to do? This is who we are. This is what we do all the time, whether we're on furlough or whether we're here in South Africa. This is who Mary and I are. Not because we're in a certain location that we're different. No, this is who we are. This is who you are. You are the salt. Get out of the salt shaker and get out into the world and make a difference. But serve God by serving others. That would be I'm going to go back one. Right? That's always my favorite one. Right? Just start serving people. Start loving people, caring for them. And by doing that, you're serving God. You're doing what you were supposed to be doing. You're fulfilling what God has called you to do. Let me close off in a word of prayer, and we'll be done. Let's pray. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, again, thank you so much for this time. Lord, thank you for the opportunity of being here. Lord, I thank you for our family here, our church here. Lord, and it is good to be home. It is good to be back. And Lord, it's exciting to be involved in the ministry here and to be involved in what it is that you're doing here. But Lord, I pray that you will help each and every one of us, myself included, Lord, to get out of the salt shaker, to get out into the world, to begin to influence the world, to just be a part of what it is, the mission that you are accomplishing around us. And Lord, help us to be a part of that. Help us to be involved in it. Help us, Lord, not to be contaminated with the world, but Lord, to remain pure and clean as we possibly can, and to be that positive influence you have asked us to be. Again, Lord, I thank you for this time, and I thank you for the opportunity of being able to be here. In your precious name we pray. Amen.